Cornhole Champions. I'm Zachary Oren Smith. I'm sitting here with Amie Rivers and Avery Staker. For our third story, Iowa has a cancer problem like no other state in America. We're not just worst or second worst. We're the only state where cancer rates are actually getting worse. And the Trump administration just decided that it would be a good time to begin cutting cancer research funding. As part of our investigation, the hot spot here at Iowa Starting Line, we are featuring reporting and perspectives to help understand what is contributing to our high cancer rate. This week, Amie Rivers had our lead story for the series. Amie, tell me, can you begin by kind of giving an overview of kind of like what it is you were trying to answer with this first story?
I want to answer like where we're at in cancer research, where we need to be in cancer research, and how that's affecting Iowans.
And it's kind of tough from the outside. Or like I live in Iowa City, so like it's the like kind of politics around research funding is pretty familiar to me. But like for your average listener, right? Like why should they care about a researcher in the lab? What kinds of things are they working on that that cancer patients today should be interested in?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of success stories that we hear about. Like, for example, breast cancer used to be a death sentence, and now it's very, very treatable, as is prostate cancer. But there are other cancers where those breakthroughs just haven't happened yet. And one of those, I talked to a couple of women whose husbands had both died of this glioblastoma brain cancer. That type of brain cancer only has like a 5.5% chance of survival 5 years on. So very, very low chance of survival. And they're just desperate for research. They're so desperate that one of their husbands, Chad, who is an engineer at Collins Aerospace, helped invent this device that he called the Golden Halo. And he would wear this, it went over his bed, and he would wear it at night. And it would basically create an energy field that would, and did, shrink his tumors down to the point where his wife said they weren't even visible on an MRI. And she really credits that with giving him that 2.5 years past diagnosis. A lot of patients with this type of cancer maybe can go a year on the standard of care. So he was really instrumental in that research. And then that, along with the researchers at the University of Iowa, really helped that progress. I talked to a couple in Colorado who started this White Ribbon Project after one of the women, Heidi Onda, had gotten lung cancer despite not having a history of smoking. And so she all of a sudden was like, oh, it's radon. What do we do about this? How can we get screened? How can we get tests? Because one of the problems is they don't want to do an X-ray screening and put more radiation in your body if you're not for sure going to have it. So working with researchers to try to find better things. Patients are already doing this. Right. Now they just need help.
To what extent are funding cuts impacting that work? We've talked a little bit about kind of how this works more broadly, but how does this impact that work?
So like, for example, the National Institutes of Health has cut or paused more than $33 million for research just at the University of Iowa, which does a lot of cancer research in the state. And new projects are facing really long odds. So like only 4% of new proposals to the National Cancer Institute will be funded going forward. So basically this means 4,000 fewer research projects this year, 15,000 fewer research projects next year. And I talked to a cancer researcher from Iowa City who is now going to medical school out east. And she's talking about whole labs she's seeing being shut down. Projects are being canceled. Researchers can't be hired because of the funding cuts. And that means, she said, whatever drug was being tested, whatever treatment was being tested will probably never make it to the clinic, or at least won't make it until funding gets restored. And that drug could be an absolute miracle drug. There are lots of things in the pipeline at a lot of these different stages that are now just being halted. And she's saying, the best thing that you can do right now is lobby, your federally elected representatives to restore this funding because it's desperately needed.
Yeah, and there's like a long-term impact that this kind of lapse in funding happens, right? It'd be one thing if, you could, kind of turn on and off the spigot of funding and more or less continue as you were, right? If there is a certain amount of government graft, right, in terms of, unimportant scientific studies, right? I can understand the need to the want for some quality control about what it is we're putting taxpayer funding behind, right? Unfortunately, when we turn off this funding, right, all at once, unilaterally like this, those are labs that have to make the choice about, which researchers to lay off, that have to, which studies to continue, pieces of equipment, right, that, can't just be turned off and then back on again, right? Lab cultures that might kind of become unusable, right, because we just no longer have the equipment to be able to keep it going. We've talked a little bit about kind of those impacts, right? That there's this generational impact that this kind of funding loss will have.
Yeah.
It's staggering.
I'm curious as to what's the relationship with like public funding and private funding, like the availability of private funding versus public funding, and how much, some research could get from either or both of those.
Yeah, why can't we just like have the free market fund this? If it's so necessary? Absolutely. I didn't put this in my article, but I asked the cancer researcher from Iowa City, whose name is Claire Brown, about this specifically, and she said, there are a lot of strings attached to private funding. So like the type of science that they do in research labs like hers, which are publicly funded, are more exploratory, and the type of research that's done privately are targeted. She says they only invest in things they know are going to be a sure win. And so that really restricts, that really sort of narrows the field of vision. You're not just like sort of having a hypothesis and like throwing that against the wall and seeing what happens. You're like, I know this works because this worked, but that worked and that worked. And then you're just targeting. And sometimes it means you're following the money. If a lot of people have a cancer, for example. So this is why we have a lot of good breast cancer cures. A lot of people have breast cancer, but these more rare cancers that not a lot of people get aren't profitable, for these private labs. So they're not going to fund them. So this is what the difference is between private and public research is. And if you're solely relying on the private sector, not only are you just worried about the profits and whether the companies are going to stay afloat, but then you're relying on people, the generosity of folks to basically help you with that. And we can do this a lot more efficiently and a lot better with public funding.
Amie, do you have a sense of like how this is impacting like younger researchers?
Claire's a younger researcher. She's in her 20s. She's going to med school. She still has a job. She's still able to go, but she is seeing like new researchers aren't being recruited. Students aren't able to come to these labs because there's no money to fund their research. So she's already seeing that these researchers are sort of being shut out of the pipeline. Now, whether they're able to go to these private labs or not is sort of up in the air. But, I saw the other day, there was a commercial for Lilly, the big manufacturing company, the big pharmaceutical company. And Lilly has this big, like, come work for us, we're hiring. And this is all because all of these researchers are now out of a job.
Wow.
So we're sort of just shifting all of this to the private sector. Now, whether that's going to help facilitate these cures that we need or not, and whether the United States, frankly, is going to continue to be a leader in cancer research is sort of up in the air.
Every young researcher who leaves Iowa, every clinical trial that gets canceled, every study that doesn't happen, it's not just a missed opportunity. That's a building block in our cancer research and treatment infrastructure that we lose out on. Unlike budget spreadsheets, cancer doesn't wait for a more convenient timing. That was another episode of Cornhole Champions. If you like the show, here's some things you can do to support. 1, go subscribe to our show at our home on youtube.com. Like and subscribe to help us grow values-driven media right here on YouTube. 2, get my newsletter and get these episodes straight to your email every Wednesday. That's at cornholechampions.substack.com. 3, to catch the work, follow us on Iowa Starting Line's Instagram and TikTok. 4, sign up for Iowa Starting Line's flagship newsletter at iowastartingline.com/newsletter to get missives like from our cancer series right when they drop in your email. Cornhole Champions is a weekly podcast powered by Iowa Starting Line. This podcast is produced by me and edited by Rebecca Steinberg. Our music is by Avery Mossman, and our show art is by Desirée Tapia. Cornhole Champions is a proud member of the Iowa Writers Collaborative. We'll see you with a new episode next Wednesday. Until then, I'm Zachary Oren Smith.
I'm Amie Rivers.
And I'm Avery Staker.
Thanks for listening. So we all agree that the Bavarian cream donut is the finest donut.
For sure,
And,
yeah.
Yeah, it is
good
known.
one.
This is the finest donut. Every donut
Yeah.
is a weak little cuck in the
Well,
eyes of
that's a
I
little
don't know
far.
about that
That's
part.
I don't know about
Well,
that.
we all
but
agree.
A
We all
Bavarian
agree
cream
that
donut is really
we
good.
all agree that the Bavarian cream donut is a goated donut, and everything else is filth.